If true, this changes everything, as we just received some breaking news just hours before the Eagles versus Vikings game, and this could be the spark the Eagles need after terrible play, especially from their defense last week. I'll discuss this and more on another edition of Eagles Digest. What's going on, guys? Alex Brooks back here on Eagles Digest to give you guys all of the breaking news and everything surrounding the Philadelphia Eagles. We just received some big breaking news out of the NovaCare complex, and we are going to deliver it here on Eagles Digest. But before we get right into this video, if you guys are not subscribe to this channel, if you're part of the 97.4% who aren't subscribed to this channel, you guys better hit that subscribe button. Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on everything surrounding the Philadelphia Eagles, whether you have a strong opinion, whether you have an argument against what I say. Comment it down below. I want to know your thoughts, and I want to have a conversation with you. But getting right into this video, as we're talking about Brandon Graham and why Brandon Graham, like randomly hours before the Eagles versus Viking game. Why are we talking about Brandon Graham? Well, we just received some breaking news that was very unexpected. This was from Adam Schefter on Brandon Graham, saying with Zadarius Smith retiring, former Eagles defensive end Brandon Graham is now strongly considering coming out of retirement to sign with Philadelphia, league sources told ESPN. And this is huge, guys. This is big for the Philadelphia Eagles and Brandon Graham himself. We knew that there was some rumblings about Brandon Graham possibly coming out of retirement. And from last year, Vic Fangio just was big on saying that, Brandon Graham still has a lot left in the tank. He still has a lot left to deliver for this Philadelphia Eagles team. And this may reign true here in 2025. We know that this Eagles defense has looked dreadful, especially last week on the edge. I think it's the big, discrepancy for this Philadelphia Eagles team is that their edge rushers are not elevating their game that they expected to after Josh Sweat went in free agency, Brandon Graham retiring, and then they just get a huge retirement notice from Zadarius Smith. So they're in need of pass rushing. Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals just won on Thursday Night Football, so Trey Hendrickson might be out of the conversation for a trade. So the Eagles are trying to go with that emergency piece right now, and I think Brandon Graham's definitely looking at this and wanting to ignite a spark in this Philadelphia Eagles defensive room. And looking at what he's been able to do his whole career, you see it, 206 games. He has the record of consecutive games playing for the Philadelphia Eagles. He had 76 and a half sacks, 359 solo tackles, and 23 forced fumbles. When he was retiring, he is not the premier defensive end. He's not going to be the all-pro guy that you're going to expect to get 10 to 15 sacks per game or per season. But he definitely has the ability to bring a locker room together. We noticed that after the collapse in 2023, I think the biggest thing that Brandon Graham said, he said that he wants one final ride, but he said that he was confident in this group to get back, regroup, and go after a championship. And he kind of manifested that even at the lowest of lows after losing to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and getting embarrassed on national TV. He definitely was there to be like, hey, this team is still very good. We just need to regroup. We need to reset and go after next season and really attack it. Well, they did. And with Brandon Graham going into injury and then coming back for the Super Bowl, I definitely think that he wants to get back into this Eagles defensive room and just give some sort of spark, because we know what he can do on the defensive side. We also know what he can provide with trash talking to other teams. He has that leadership ability. He's been a captain for years for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I would welcome him back. I know when you're playing into his legacy about what he was able to do after, coming back from the injury, winning Super Bowl 59, just going out a champion. I think when you're looking at that, that's very hard to come back from, because you're risking now just coming back and knowing that your legacy is not, when you officially retire, it's not as Super Bowl champion. But I know he is in that mindset of, I feel like I am a missing piece to this Eagles championship team, and he definitely wants to run it back with Philadelphia. And looking at the stats from the defensive guys, especially on the sack numbers, Jordan Davis, Moro Ojomo, Zach Bond, Zadarius Smith, Patrick Johnson, Andrew Mukuba, they are the only guys that have sacks in the 2025 season. And the lead sack leader is Bond, Ojomo, and Davis at 2. And Bond, Ojomo, and Davis are not pass rushers. Davis and Ojomo are defensive tackles. Davis is more of the nose tackle. Ojomo is more of that, I would say pass rushing defensive tackle, but he is not on the edge. Zach Bond, he is an off-ball linebacker. And when you're looking at it, Zadarius Smith, 1.5 sacks, he's out the door. And now you look at Patrick Johnson, Andrew Mukuba, linebacker and safety. So you look at that, no defensive ends outside of Zadarius Smith, who retired, has any sacks on this season. That is pathetic. That is really pathetic, because you're looking at how the impact you have on getting sacks. We saw in 2022, the Eagles had the most sacks in their franchise's history, and they had more sacks than anybody in the league, and that led them all the way to a Super Bowl in 2022. So you got to get some urgency on the edge, and definitely Brandon Graham can provide that. And I think a little note just to kind of, food for thought here is Jalix Hunt, who was a big fan of Brandon Graham when he got drafted to the Philadelphia Eagles in the 3rd round. Jalix Hunt did. He talked highly about Brandon Graham after he retired, and he definitely had Brandon Graham as his mentor. Definitely think with Jalix Hunt having a lot of pressure on him, being the only prominent defensive end in that room with Nolan Smith being injured, he definitely needs that leadership a little bit more. You need another year with Brandon Graham to help you develop into that star pass rusher, or at least a really good, competent pass rusher that can get to the quarterback. Because when you were looking at Cam Jurgens, he was drafted in 2022. He came out as a rookie, and he didn't get starting time until the 2023 season when he was the right guard. So it took Cam Jurgens a couple years to get acclimated to that center offensive line position, and then coming in as a center the next year, the Eagles didn't miss a beat. So I think the same thing with Jalix Hunt. He needs a little bit more development. He needs a little bit more seasoning, and having Brandon Graham back in this room could be huge for this Eagles team, not just this year, but the development for next year with guys like Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, all of these guys who are expected to be the next good pass rushers for the Philadelphia Eagles. And just looking at the depth chart right now, I know I've shown this over and over again with Eagles videos, so just mind me right here. But looking at this depth chart, Moro Ojomo, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, they're the defensive tackles on this team. But when we're looking at it, Azeez Ojulari, Jalix Hunt, Joshua Uche, Patrick Johnson, they're not getting it done. And the Eagles have had some injuries. Ogbo is injured. Nolan Smith Jr. is injured. He's not going to come back until after the bye week, so you're going to have to get a little bit of urgency right now on the defensive end room. The Eagles are looking for defensive end help, but if they're able to get one by a trade and have Brandon Graham in that room to help out, that could be so crucial to this Eagles team to turn it around and have a spark and have an identity on the defensive line. And I definitely think that this is going to be something where Howie Roseman and the Philadelphia Eagles and Brandon Graham just got to talk down, and they got to understand that Brandon Graham, is he still in football shape? Is he in football shape? Is he going to have to take a couple games off and just develop a little bit and just get back into football shape? Or is he ready to go and he's been training in the offseason? That's just the big question that I'm going to look at regarding Brandon Graham. But I definitely think if everything is all good and both sides agree on a deal and Brandon Graham wants to come back and try to run it back with the Philadelphia Eagles, I would bring him with open arms. But that's going to do it for another edition of Eagles Digest. Let me know your thoughts on Brandon Graham possibly coming out of retirement and joining this Eagles team. Want to get your thoughts on what this could mean for the Philadelphia Eagles moving forward. You guys better hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you're notified at all of our videos. Hope you guys enjoy this Vikings versus Eagles game. The Eagles are really really needing a win right now to turn around their season. So let's go Eagles, fly, go Birds, and let's be 5-2.